There is a stereotype in the world that true evil must necessarily be sophisticated and insidious. However, the story I want to tell you today disproves this assertion. It's about Cassandra Bjorge, a teenager whose actions shook the quiet life of a small town in Georgia. Before delving into the details of this tragic story, it's worth noting that Cassandra wasn't just a troubled teenager. Her behavior and reactions to any restrictions went far beyond ordinary teenage rebellion. The way she responded to her grandparents' care forever changed the lives of the entire family. The story begins in Lawrenceville, a cozy town with a population of just over 31,000 residents, located northeast of Atlanta. This is where the couple Wendy and Randall Bjorge lived. They settled in this place in the 1990s after moving from California, where Randall worked as an engineer in the aerospace industry. The couple chose Georgia for a peaceful retirement life. At 63, Wendy and Randall were an exemplary couple. Their marriage lasted several decades, and during this time, they earned the respect of the entire community. Neighbors described them as friendly but reserved people. The couple was actively involved in volunteering. Wendy devoted time to working with children in Sunday school and organized fundraising for the local animal shelter, while Randall, despite being retired, continued to provide engineering consultations. When their daughter Amanda asked for help raising her troubled teenage daughter, the couple agreed without hesitation. They sincerely believed that spending more time with their granddaughter would benefit her. Unfortunately, they couldn't predict how fatal this decision would turn out to be. Cassandra, or simply Cassie, as her close ones called her, was born in Gwinnett County, Georgia. She was Amanda's only child, who had her very young, at 19. The girl's life was difficult from the start. Her father abandoned the family when she was only 2 years old and never appeared in her life again. Her mother's second marriage also proved unsuccessful. Cassandra's childhood was far from ideal. Neighbors often witnessed loud arguments between mother and daughter. Amanda worked late, leaving her daughter alone, which led to a lack of proper upbringing and supervision. By 16, Cassandra already had an impressive list of offenses. Her first arrest occurred at 13 for shoplifting. By 15, she was already experimenting with drugs and socializing with much older teenagers who had problems with the law. Her behavior included alcohol consumption, skipping school, and regular running away from home. Social services had intervened in Cassandra's life repeatedly since elementary school. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll bring you more videos featuring the most shocking and true crime stories. School psychologists recorded alarming signals. The girl showed cruelty to animals, once set fire to the school locker room, and wrote horrifying stories about murders in her diary. Teachers noticed that Cassie often drew violent scenes in the margins of her notebooks. Despite numerous attempts to involve her in therapy and counseling, the girl categorically refused any help. Her relationship with her mother was particularly concerning. Amanda confessed to social workers that she was afraid of her own daughter. There were instances when Cassie threatened her mother with a knife over being forbidden to date older boys. At 14, she stole her mother's car and tried to run away to Florida with a 21-year-old acquaintance she met online. At school, Cassie had a reputation as a troubled student. Despite high intelligence test scores, she deliberately failed exams and refused to do homework. Teachers noted her aggressive behavior towards classmates and open conflicts with instructors. When the situation became critical, Amanda turned to her parents. In 2016, Wendy and Randall received official custody of their granddaughter. The court quickly approved their petition, considering Cassie's numerous offenses and her mother's apparent inability to handle her daughter. However, the move to Lawrenceville didn't bring the expected changes. Cassie immediately showed her dissatisfaction. Neighbors often heard her screaming at her grandparents and even threatening them. Despite this, the elderly couple believed they could help their granddaughter. Wendy and Randall spent over $40,000 on Cassandra's treatment and rehabilitation in the last year of their lives, including private therapy and specialized programs for teenagers. They established basic rules: coming home on time, no alcohol or smoking, mandatory school attendance, and completing homework. But Cassie had no intention of changing. In December 2016, a serious incident occurred. She stole her grandmother's credit card and spent almost $2,000 on online purchases. When Wendy tried to discuss this with her, Cassie had a meltdown and broke family photographs. Medical documents later presented in court revealed a complex picture of Cassandra's mental health. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and personality disorder. Wendy kept a detailed diary of attempts to help her granddaughter, which later became important evidence in the case. She recorded every outburst of aggression, every attempt to find common ground. Today Cassie refused her medication again. Says they make her feel like a zombie. Tried to explain how important it is to follow the doctor's prescriptions, but she just laughed in my face, Wendy wrote a week before the tragedy. The grandparents found a specialized school for teenagers with behavioral problems, but Cassie categorically refused to attend. Instead, she spent time with Johnny Ryder, whose influence was becoming increasingly apparent. In the first 3 months at the new school, Cassie attended only 12 days of classes, after which she stopped going to lessons altogether. The generational conflict was growing into a real war, and no one could predict its tragic resolution. After Cassie dropped out of school, the situation in Lawrenceville became even more tense. According to police reports, during 2016 to 2017, law enforcement responded to 31 calls at the Bjorge family home. 9 calls came from concerned neighbors who heard screaming and banging, while 18 times the police were called by Wendy and Randall themselves due to their granddaughter's runaways. Police documentation from that period indicates a rapid escalation in violence levels. There were recorded instances where Cassie threatened to burn down the house, and once even attempted to attack her grandfather with a kitchen knife. Despite this, the elderly couple refused to file official complaints, still hoping to reach their granddaughter's heart. Police calls concerned various incidents, from physical aggression against the grandparents to illegal alcohol consumption and smoking in the house. One of the most serious incidents occurred in winter 2016, when Cassie attacked Wendy. According to the grandmother, the conflict erupted after the granddaughter was caught drinking alcohol. Enraged by comments about her inappropriate language, Cassie threw a glass of water at her grandmother. Fortunately, the glass hit the wall, but the attack itself deeply troubled law enforcement. During this period, 19-year-old Johnny Ryder appeared in Cassie's life. The young man already had a criminal record for petty theft and had a reputation among peers as a troubled teenager. In 2016, he was accused of attacking his ex-girlfriend, but the case was closed due to the victim's refusal to testify. Wendy and Randall's attempts to forbid this relationship only intensified the conflict. One police officer later wrote in his report, "In all my years of service, I've never seen such outright hatred from a teenager toward their guardians." It was obvious that the situation could become dangerous. Regular runaways from home became another problem. Cassie could disappear for several days, forcing Wendy to turn to the community through Facebook with requests to help find her granddaughter. On April 1, 2017, Cassie ran away again. Wendy, as usual, wrote a post on Facebook, not suspecting it would be her last message on social media. It contained touching words, "Despite everything, I love her with all my heart. Praying she finds her way and returns home safely." At 23:18 that same day, Wendy left her final message, "I'm going to bed soon. Maybe tomorrow will be better. All I can do is hope for the best and expect the worst." When Wendy and Randall stopped responding to calls and messages from relatives, they contacted the police requesting a welfare check at the house. Officers arriving at the scene received no response to their knocks on the door and decided to wait another day before taking more active measures. Neighbors later reported seeing Cassie and Johnny near the house during these days. They even ordered pizza delivery, which didn't raise any alarms since everyone knew the girl lived in this house. On April 8, police received a domestic violence call from another house in Lawrenceville. The perpetrators turned out to be Cassandra Bjorge and Johnny Ryder, who managed to flee before police arrived. According to witnesses, they were driving Wendy and Randall's car, a detail that later became important to the investigation. Dramatic events unfolded when Johnny's sister and her boyfriend returned home to find unwanted guests, Cassie and Johnny. The house was ransacked, the bedroom turned upside down, items missing, furniture damaged. Instead of explanations, a violent confrontation erupted. Johnny used tear gas against his sister, then began beating her boyfriend. Cassie, armed with a baseball bat, attacked Johnny's sister from behind, striking her head, neck, and shoulders. Medical reports later confirmed the severity of the injuries. Johnny's sister suffered a concussion and a broken collarbone, while her boyfriend sustained a broken nose and numerous bruises. Leaving their victims unconscious, the attackers fled in the stolen car. While investigating the assault, detectives noticed the car Cassie and Johnny arrived in. It belonged to the missing Wendy and Randall. This prompted police to return to the Bjorge house, this time with firm intentions to get inside. When we entered, the first thing that hit us was the horrible stench, Officer Robert Beltran later recalled in his testimony. We knew we would find something terrible. Upon reaching the bedroom, police discovered the bodies of Wendy and Randall. The elderly couple had died a brutal death, their bodies had multiple stab wounds and head trauma. Medical examiners determined that death resulted from a combination of blunt force trauma to the head and strangulation. The bodies were wrapped in blankets and bound with tape. Investigators were shocked by the level of crime preparation. On Cassie's phone, they found detailed notes about murder methods and body concealment. She had Googled information about body decomposition, ways to mask odors, and methods of destroying evidence. In her correspondence with Johnny, they found chilling jokes about how they would inherit the house after the old people's death. During interrogation, police were struck by Cassie's lack of emotion. When shown photographs of her grandparents' mutilated bodies, she merely shrugged and asked for coffee. The only time she showed emotion was when told her favorite cat would be sent to a shelter. "They were the kindest people I've ever known," said their neighbor Mike Kennedy in an interview with local news. Taking in a troubled granddaughter, that was so like them. They were always trying to help others. Police quickly tracked down the suspects. The next morning, Cassie and Johnny were found in a nearby apartment complex. The teenagers barricaded themselves in a friend's apartment and refused to surrender. Negotiations lasted several hours, with police bringing in a special negotiator, but to no avail. Using a remotely controlled robot, law enforcement discovered that the suspects were hiding in the bathroom. When police finally burst inside, they found the teenagers unconscious in pools of blood. They had attempted by cutting their wrists. When we broke into the bathroom, they were both unconscious from blood loss, Sergeant Jake Smith reported. A few more minutes, and they would have achieved their goal. Medical personnel managed to save both suspects. After arrest, each tried to shift blame to the other, claiming they were merely a witness to Wendy and Randall's murder. During interrogation, Cassie was the first to break the silence and described the events of that fatal night. She talked about killing her grandparents with such coldness, as if she was describing a trip to the store. "It was chilling," recalled Detective Dave Smith, who conducted the interrogation. According to her, she had grown tired of her grandparents' attempts to control her. After running away on April 1st, Cassie met with Johnny to plan the murder. Before the attack, they used which, according to Cassie, gave them courage. They discussed the murder plan for several days, even drawing a diagram of the house. Waiting until night, armed with an iron rod, hammer, baseball bats, knives, and tape, they quietly entered the house. When the bedroom fell silent, the attackers burst inside. Johnny attacked Randall, while Cassie went after Wendy. She dragged her grandmother out of bed, bound her with tape, and dragged her to the bathroom, where she inflicted numerous blows. Medical examiners discovered a particularly cruel detail: Wendy and Randall were still alive when they were being bound. Death came from a combination of head trauma and strangulation. According to the prosecutor's estimates, the agony could have lasted up to 15 minutes. After the murder, Johnny and Cassie placed the bodies on the bedroom floor, sealed the windows and doors, trying to contain the decomposition smell. With chilling indifference, they cleaned the premises, went downstairs to the living room, ordered food, and cheerfully discussed their actions while using as their victims' bodies lay upstairs. Particularly striking was that the killers used coffee grounds around the bodies, a method Cassie learned from crime shows. They also carefully wiped away all fingerprints in the house and even tried to create a false alibi by ordering food delivery and making social media posts under Wendy's name. They stayed in the house for several more days, leaving only to attack Johnny's sister, who was meant to be their second victim. Cassie confessed that they planned to kill Johnny's entire family, and then her mother Amanda. They even tried to reach Johnny's parents' house but retreated after seeing 2 cars in the driveway. This case shocked Lawrenceville. The city had never encountered such a brutal murder committed by teenagers. Although Johnny, being an adult, could have received the death penalty, both killers agreed to plea deals. On August 11, 2017, they were sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 60 years, plus an additional 20 years in prison. At trial, Johnny expressed sincere remorse and asked for forgiveness from the family and community, acknowledging that he deserved hellfire. Cassie silently cried, declining to make a final statement. The trial revealed shocking details that this murder might not have been the couple's first crime. Police found evidence of their involvement in a series of abandoned house arsons in the area. Johnny's phone contained videos of them abusing homeless people, indicating an escalation of cruelty. Experts noted her complete lack of empathy and inability to feel guilt. At the same time, she maintained a high level of intelligence and capacity for manipulation. In prison, Cassie began writing memoirs, which she tried to sell to publishers. In 2018, she filed an appeal on her sentence, claiming her attorney was incompetent, but the Georgia Court of Appeals rejected her petition. This sparked public outrage and led to the passage of a law in Georgia prohibiting convicted criminals from profiting from publications about their crimes. These additional details help better understand Cassandra's psychological portrait and show how complex and tragic this story was. They also highlight Wendy and Randall's heroic attempts to save their granddaughter, despite all the warning signs. Cassie's mother admitted she never suspected her daughter was capable of such cruelty. Amanda Bjorge experienced deep depression after the tragedy. She moved away from Georgia and dedicated herself to working with parents of troubled teenagers. The tragedy forever changed the Lawrenceville community. Kind and respected Wendy and Randall Bjorge died at the hands of their own granddaughter while trying to help her become a better person. 2 young killers will spend the next decades behind bars, paying a high price for their horrific crime. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel. Until next time, friends.